Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's interview with Philippe Gaulier. But before we get started with today's interview session, I have to first make some announcements. Don't forget to check out our website. Registration is now open for both the 2D and 3D classes. So please go ahead and check out our main CG Master Academy websites for both the 2D classes and 3D classes. Registration will be open until May 1st. So please check out our lineup of instructors and classes. And from there, you can go ahead and sign up for the classes you find most interesting. Beyond that, I am happy and ecstatic to basically have this interview session with Philippe, who unfortunately couldn't do his session a couple weeks ago because of technical difficulties, but he is here today and excited to share with you some of his work. But without any further ado, I'm going to pass control over to him so that way we can see his screen and hear more about who he is, how he got into the industry, and what he's currently working on. So Philippe, if you will, can you share your screen with us?
Yeah. Oh. Can you?
Yes.
Can you see the screen? Yeah, that's it. The
Awesome.
mouse, everything.
Perfect. And before you start, and by the way, everyone in attendance, please begin entering your questions. I'll be taking questions for Philippe, so just enter them into the question module, and from there, I can ask them as we go along. So that's it. Okay, Philippe, take it away.
All right. So hi Ted, and thanks for having me again after the little hiccup from last week. And apologies for those who were here last week and were waiting and couldn't get the interview. So hello everyone. So first, maybe I could tell you a little bit about what I did and how I got there, if that's cool. So basically, I graduated 15, 16 years ago, back in Paris, in France, in a school called Penningen, ESAG, E-S-A-G. I was doing illustration and graphic design, and then I worked in video games. And one thing leading to another, I moved to England. And when I moved to England, I'll show you actually some old things I did at the time. This was my graduation thesis back in art school, and it's just to show you, to give you an idea of the sort of things I was doing when I started, which was way more traditional. We used to do lots of acrylic painting. We used to do lots of, we did gouache, markers, lots of basically traditional techniques. I hardly used the Wacom. I didn't have a Wacom at the time, actually. I barely had a small Macintosh, which didn't work really, which wasn't really fast. So everything was traditional, like markers, pencils, acrylic, watercolor, and everything you could put your hands on, photographs and things like that. And yeah, so these are a few works that I did. This was for video games at the time. So there was a bit of it was like a few years later. So when I started in video games, I started using the Wacom tablet, and it was a bit tough at first, because I never touched one before. So it took me probably about a week to really get comfortable with it, and then it was smooth from then on. I mean, most of you guys who are listening, you probably wouldn't understand that because you probably grew up with a Wacom tablet in your hand, but I didn't, and it was a bit tough at first. So, and yeah, so here are a few sketches, a few old what I would call some oldies, a few zombies. There's always nice to have a few zombies in your portfolio somewhere. Some little sets that I did. Is it big enough actually on the screen?
Yes, we can see your full screen. This is actually, this is better too. Perfect.
And yeah, so a few things like that, and what too big. And yeah, and after that, and yeah, and after video games, the company that I worked for unfortunately closed down, which was a difficult time at the time in France. Quite a few smaller companies closed down, like one after each other. Apart from the big ones such as Ubisoft, which were still thriving. I mean, which are still thriving to this day. So there was like a company called In Utero, like the Nirvana album. Another company called there were quite a few at the time. We closed down after like 7 years. I worked there 3 or 4 years. And so after that, I did illustrations. I did other jobs, and then I moved to London. And at first, because I didn't have any contacts in London, what I'm saying that I'm going to show you a few sketches that I do. Like I carry around with me at all times a little sketchbook, whether it's a tiny Moleskine sketchbook, which is as big as the palm of your hand, or whether it's a bigger sketchbook that I use when I do when I do outdoor sketching. I always have one with me, or two or three. If I don't have any backpack, I put the little sketchbook, the little Moleskine sketchbook in my pocket. If I have a backpack, I'm going to carry bigger sketchbooks. But there's always one or two with me at all times. And whether I'm in the bus, in the tube, I draw from imagination, or I draw people, or I'm in a cafe or something. And I personally find it really useful to keep learning and to keep observing. And you learn every time you sketch something, you're going to learn something, even if it's a tiny thing. It really it all adds up. Really, whether it's a composition or like a framing, a shape, or an angle. This guy was sleeping. It was in Japan actually, and we're going there quite often because my girlfriend is Japanese. And a lot of people sleep in the tube because it's a country where people work a lot, and they are really trusty as well because the crime rate is very low. So people are really relaxed in the public transport, and they sleep. So you can do pretty close up like drawings and everything. I was really close from this guy's face when I sketched him. So it was an interesting a sketch from just from above, and yeah. So more sketches, some old stuff as well, like
and how many
and doodles.
of these sketchbooks do you think you've created over the years?
Well, I don't know, there's loads. I've got like at least like the tiny ones, probably 100 tiny little sketchbooks, Moleskines, and the bigger ones, I don't know, like 50 at least. Probably 150 sketchbooks or more. I don't know.
So thousands and thousands of sketches, basically.
Probably, yeah. Sketch-wise, yeah, like loads and loads of them, yeah. And I find it very, very useful because when you stick only to working on computer all the time and from imagination only, I've got the feeling that you become a bit dry because you stop observing. You only feed from yourself. Like a snake biting its tail and feeding from it, and at the end there's nothing left, and you end up like like hitting a wall, because you need to get influences from outside, for whether it's in a museum like such as this one. Some sketches I do sometimes when I go to museums, or to like this was like an armor in a very nice museum in London, like some sort of a helmet.
Right.
This one too. This guy here, like these simple things like this, and you always learn something. Like or this in Japan as well, like one of those sushi conveyor belts. A very nice place, by the way. It was really good. Proper sushi. I know you got good places for sushi in LA, don't you?
We have a couple.
You get quite a few, I've heard. Yeah, and other things. This was while watching TV. So you watch TV, and if you can pause, you pause, like, and you just make a sketch from this was what was it? I don't remember which series it was. Justified, I think. That's it. And yeah, this as well, that sort of things. So, and to continue the story, and then when I moved to London, I didn't have any contacts whatsoever in terms of like where to go when you want to be a concept artist, and when you want to be a concept artist for films. So I sent a few CVs here and there, didn't get any reply, didn't get any answer or anything. And then I started doing texturing for a TV series back at Pinewood Studio, like over 10 years ago. And one thing leading to another, I joined the art department at MPC, the moving picture company. It's a big post-production facility in London. And I spent about a year there, where I did. I'll show you a few of the things I did over there. Some of the things I did. So I was working with Virginie Bourdin, who was the art director at the time. And I had the opportunity to do some work, for example, for Harry Potter. So this was for is it actually, that didn't make sense, or that? Can I keep jumping from one thing to another?
No, cool? It's cool. Go ahead.
Okay. So this was on Harry Potter for the Inferi sequence. The underground lake with all these sort of like zombies coming out of the water, and and the idea was to have them all like kind of like connected with each other, as if it was like a one single body moving at once, rather than loads of them moving like independently. They would be all like kind of melted together, interconnected together. So it was quite grim, quite gruesome, and it was probably a bit too much. And eventually, I think ILM did the sequence, and we didn't get the sequence, but I don't know why, because I wasn't there when they took the decision. But it should have been interesting. So you see, there were like all these interconnected bodies, connected by the spine. This brother and sister. So it was quite dark, actually, probably too dark even for a iPod. But it was fun to do, because it was about developing ideas and taking the brief and trying to push it as far as we could. So I did loads and loads of sketches, and this one was still for Harry Potter. It was a bit later. It was for the Horcrux. That Harry is breaking, and each of them contains a small piece of Voldemort's soul, and the idea is that when you break it, it kind of explodes. If there's any Harry Potter specialists listening, I apologize if I make any mistakes, because I know that there are a few purists out there. As far as I know, when you break the Horcrux, there's this sort of weird demonical kind of apparition which comes out of it, and the idea here was to depict all the souls and all the people that Voldemort kind of enslaved and killed along the years. So you can see his face here at the top, and but everything else is all these lost and desperate souls who are really trying to escape. And so the first approach for this was really to go for a more organic kind of body, which would be like a melted mix of heads and body parts, and eventually, and this one as well, you can see and it would constantly move and shift. And obviously, it was influenced by this amazing thing from The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and then this design, because I worked on a while for it, and other concept artists, as it happens really often, worked on it after I finished and made it go and pushed it in another direction. Really often, this is what happens actually. No matter which movie you work on or what you do, very often you start a concept. Sometimes you're lucky enough to bring it to completion, and your original idea and your design will appear exactly as it was on screen. But quite often, actually, it's going to be a teamwork. You're going to do a bit of it, and then someone will bring it a bit further, and then you'll jump back in, etc., etc. It's really teamwork, really. And in this case, I mean, this one evolved and became something else at the end, more like a ghostly kind of ethereal kind of apparition, a bit less material than this, a bit less obvious. Some other stuff as well were at the time. This was on Hellboy 2. Guillermo del Toro, the director, wanted one facility. I was still working at MPC at the time, which is a post-production facility with its own art department, as I was mentioning before. And Guillermo del Toro came to see us, and he wanted only one facility to do all the effects for his film, because he thought that it would be easier this way, to not have to deal with different facilities. He wanted one single company to deal with everything. So we presented lots of sketches. I wasn't even working in the art department at the time, but I heard it from a friend who knew the supervisor for the special effects on this film, and I spent basically the following weekend sketching. Lots of sketches for the elemental in the film. The one I don't know if you've seen this one in Chinatown. There's this big elemental creature.
The one that looks like a bunch of vegetation, like trees and flowers.
That's it, yeah.
Vines.
Yeah, this is one. And we didn't know really. So okay, it's a vegetal kind of, but it's not. It shouldn't look like the creatures from the Lord of the Rings. Anything else but that. So okay. So no, not a bearded tree man, basically. So I tried lots of things, and I ruined my weekend actually, because I was supposed to have one of my first romantic weekends with my girlfriend, and I literally we went away in the English countryside in a very nice place, and I literally spent the weekend sketching. So she wasn't really happy about it, as you might guess. I made it up to her later, but yeah. It was a productive weekend. when it comes to sketching. And yeah, so all that was in at MPC, and after about a year there, I decided to move to another company called Double Negative VFX. Again, post-production facility with an in-house art department. And I was hired by Gurel Nemet, who became a very good friend after that. And over there, I worked on many projects, actually very exciting stuff. And just to describe a little bit what it's like to work in a VFX facility as a concept artist, it's different, and it's very similar to working in an art department on set in pre-production. If you follow what I mean. In a post-production facility, you're going to do a lot of like bidding work. Like for example, like a studio will come to you and you're going to bid at the very early stage on a film, like on any given concept or brief or part of a script. And really often what you'll have to do as well is what we call like more like VFX concept. And I've got a few examples actually of the sort of things that you're going to do, which are directly connected to what the rest of the company is going to be doing, all the visual effects and post-production work. So for instance, on something like this, which was for the film Paul, what I did at the time, and the brief on this one was I got given this frame. I don't know if you've seen Paul. It's a film with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. There are spaceships in it, even if it's not what people remember. There's an outrageous little alien, who keeps like swearing and is like unbearably rude with everyone, but with a big heart. And a few things that I did was to work on all the spaceships, storyboard, and everything. I had an opportunity to do lots of different things on this film, which was pretty cool because there were lots of things which were missing after the pre-production period. And one of them was that sort of thing. So I would get given this sort of thing. So a plate, a few references that we discussed with the VFX supervisor that the director gave him, and this, which is a very crude, incredibly crude, like a 3D model, just to say, okay, this is where the spaceship is going to be. Now make it look like a shot. Make it look like what it's going to look like in the film. And then I did something like this, which is it's not like photoreal, it's not, but it's as close as it gets, considering the time the time that I had. So to do that sort of things, you just mix basically painting, photographs, and you have to work really quickly. So you have to come up with like methods in order to come up with this very quickly, because you don't have a lot of time. And the idea is to make it look like a shot, like something that people in the team could relate to in terms of shading, in terms of lighting, in terms of texturing, and all that really. So, and modeling and all. So basically, you cannot just have like a sketchy concept. It has to be related to reality and real lighting and everything. Otherwise, it's at this stage it's completely useless. So it's fun, but it has its limitations. It's creative, but with quite a few boundaries. This one, for example, as well, is another example of the same sort of thing. This is what I got given, and this is what it became afterwards. So.
Actually, I have a question for you. Do you think your experience as a texture artist played a lot or heavily into how you approach making these types of design boards and docs?
Yeah, in some ways, yeah, because originally I was like, yes and no, because it's a continuation of what I did before. Because back in art school, because I've got a traditional background, we used to do some things. For example, like you would come in the morning with a fish, a bottle, and a can. You put them in your desk, and then you take some gouache painting and you paint it, so realistic painting, what do you call that in English? A still life kind of like painting. So you'd have to analyze different textures such as metal or organic textures or fruits or whatever kind of like brief we were supposed to tackle. So basically going to textures after texturing after art school was something which was similar in some ways, and in the sense that you have to understand how metal works. Metal shines in a particular kind of way. Plastic is different. Wood will react differently to the light, and yet texturing in some ways allows you to quickly work out. I mean, what sort of texture, what sort of little like extra little details you could add to a picture to bring it into the real world, if I may say. You know, like you can sometimes have something very rough. You throw a little texture on it at the right scale in the right places, and suddenly somehow it's, oh yeah, that looks real. There's something photographic about it, and it's just a trick of the eye, really. It's not that you spend hours on it. It's just that you put the details in the right places, and I would say that yeah, texturing in some ways really helped. It's really complementary to, especially when you have like a more like a illustrative kind of background. It really helps you to tackle more realistic and more photoreal kind of matters. So this as well, you know, like this shitty little trees and up and yeah, that sort of thing. And this is a part of the job, but sometimes you get to do like more fun work as well. So I'll show you this as well, which is also for the same film. So again, lighting exercises, and also I designed this. I'll open this one in Photoshop. It's going to be better. Up. These sort of things, you know, like for the spaceship at the end, there's a big mothership. And this was like I worked like directly with the modeler on this one because I started designing this first, and then I gave this to a modeler and I sat with him and we discussed it because he was a much faster modeler than I am, and he came up with a rough model for this, and then I took it to the next stage and made it into this more like a detailed and realistic kind of like kind of concept, which was then used by the compers, modelers, lighters, animators, and so on to put in shots, basically. And also, what else? Lots of and that sort of thing though that I was showing you last time. This sort of thing, which was at the end of the same film, Paul. There was a little bit of budget left, and at first, the director Greg Motola talked about using this budget to have like to change the universal opening credits. You know, when the camera is like moving around the universal logo, turning around the planet, and he thought, I'd like to do something which would be like comic book like one of these vintage like comic books like back in the 70s, and so I came up with lots of ideas. You know, in a Jack Kirby kind of like Silver Surfer kind of way. So you had the magma planet, you know, the crop circle, that sort of thing. This as well. So sometimes you get an opportunity to do lots of fun stuff, which are very, very, very different from each other. Not only like a photoreal or illustrative or speed painting, but sometimes you do like comic book stuff. Like you end up tackling lots of different things in lots of different ways, which is quite exciting actually. So let me show you some. And also, sometimes you also do like a more like in-depth concept, like from completely from scratch, without any frame or any direction. And it was the case on Snow White and the Huntsman. And as I was saying before, the importance of sketching. All these little sketches, these ones were done in my tiny little Moleskine sketchbook, the ones which can fit in your pocket. So I would be in the tube, or in the bus, or even at work sometimes, to get away from the screen. I would do these quick little sketches, you know, with like a marker, and I always do them without any pencil sketch first, because it forces you to think and to really focus. It's like all the sketches I do outdoor as well, unless they are fully penciled or done with a graphite pen or something. If it's markers, I just go directly with the marker because I find it more productive in some ways. It's more dangerous, you know. You cannot make any mistake, and it's more rewarding as well because you put the line on the paper and it's there. It doesn't go. And it's much simpler as well to work in very small format because you can really focus on the composition. You don't have like enough. You cannot put so many details, so you really keep it to the essential, to the minimum, and you know, that sort of things, and all those ones, to try and find like an interesting composition, for this particular shot that I was doing, which was for the Black Forest, the dark forest in Snow White. So it's supposed to be a haunted forest, quite dark and scary, in a Disney kind of way, like not in a David Cronenberg kind of way, so quite scary but not too much,
Right.
And these sort of things, that as well.
Now,
And
do
I ended up,
you encourage artists to basically who do digital work primarily to still also do traditional uh, like sketches or paintings outside of Photoshop?
yeah, totally. And I know that a lot of young artists these days, I mean, only work on Wacom and tend to work only digitally, but it's really, and sketching from life, for example, whether it's from imagination or not, I mean, especially when you sketch from life, it forces your eyes to, when you do, like, for example, live drawing, for instance, when you have a model standing in front of you, and anyone who's done live drawing will understand that, and you've done it yourself, and so you'll know what I mean, and it's much more difficult to draw someone or anything like in front of you than drawing it from a photo, because on a photograph or it's two-dimensional. Half of the work has been done for you. It's already composed. It's already it's easier to understand. But to translate something that you see like in front of your eyes in 3D, and put it on paper, it forces your brain to really analyze it, and it's much harder, much more difficult, and I think that you get much more out of it. And also for me, and maybe I'm a bit precious about it. I don't know. I haven't jumped yet on the Cintiq and all that, because I didn't have a chance to really try to really try for like a few hours in a row or for a day. But I still love the contact of the pencil on the paper, and there's something very unforgiving about it as well. When you work traditionally, you don't have any adjustment layers. You don't have any Control Z, obviously. You don't have any layers. You don't have any. You cannot drop in pictures and stuff, and you cannot change the format size or anything. So it's a bit more risky, and I think that it really forces you to focus and to really make decisions, to really make to know, okay, I want this picture to be made of this sort of tones, to be in this sort of like red tones, or I want it to be happening at this particular time of day, rather than being in Photoshop and thinking, okay, now I'm going to shift everything to red or blue, or I'm going to change everything. I'm going to put the shadows in this direction instead, or I'm going to make this castle bigger. And it's good. It's good to come back to it. I think it really puts everything back into perspective, and it's refreshing as well. I think everyone should do it, but it's how I work, at least. It helps me. I don't know if it's the case for everyone, but I find it very useful.
Very cool.
And this was on Snow White and the Huntsman as well. So this was the last one, basically, that I did after all the sketches that you've seen, which were done like pretty quickly over the course of maybe a couple of days or something. And then I've done this one, which was like the final kind of forest, the final like visualization. And this one is a mix of a sketch and a lot of painting and a bit of texture as well. So I'm going to mix techniques sometimes, like for instance on this root right here. There's a bit of like a moss from photographs that I took in Japan, again, because they got this forest, very green forest with lots of moss everywhere, a little bit like in Princess Mononoke. They got like places over there which looks exactly like this, this sort of thing here. And so this one was basically the end result after all the sketches, and this was an intermediate kind of sketch. So this was done with a graphite pen on paper. Then I scanned it, and I just added a few colors in Photoshop. And I like working like this as well, because it keeps it really loose, very undefined, and it really helps you looking for like different moods, different atmospheres, and everything. And you don't stay focused on the details really. And I think graphite pen on a very grainy paper really does the trick for me sometimes. So, let me jump to some other stuff. Yes, same with this one as well, which was for same at double negative in the same place. this was for Wrath of the Titans, and it was for the the Chronos sequence. So this the Chronos was supposed to come out of this sort of magma down there, and so it would be like heavily lit with like this strong, like a burning colors, and I did this again with graphite pen, and then scanned and in Photoshop to add a few more values and everything, just to I think it gives it an extra bit of randomness, which I think is nice to the eye, and helps you bring ideas. And when you show that to a client, it really triggers thoughts, much more than if it was a very tight painting, really detailed, when there's no space for imagination anymore. So to work in a very like rough kind of way like this, I think that it's really as far as brainstorming is concerned, I think it's for me it's the best way to approach it. To be really loose at the beginning and
Right.
to refine everything like step by step. But I guess a lot of people work like that. But
I have a
I
question
think
for
that
you that came in regards to the previous pencil sketch of the forest. One of the users wanted to know how long did it take?
this one here.
Yes, how long did it take for you to do the sketches for that?
Oh, this one here was pretty quick actually. It was like I don't know, like 5-10 minutes really. It's because it's very this is really loose actually. There's not much going on. I mean everything is done with the actual color and a bit of light coming from here. The point here was to highlight this guy here walking in the forest, and it's a very loose and quick sketch. And I was planning on really use it for composition purposes and general mood and light. And I didn't want to get into detail at all. So I didn't want to waste any time and get into like this heavily detailed drawing and sketch, because at this stage it was useless. So yeah, it's a quick sketch, like probably 5-10 minutes. It was done on a small sketchbook again, quite a small format.
Okay, thank you for that.
And also, so there was this one, and this was so basically from that to that.
So those two
So there was-
basically were variations on the same theme in essence.
Yes, and this one was the final visual that I did for this same the one that you saw before, and this one you can see Pegasus right here, flying like happily. And for this one actually it was like a lot of painting, photographs, and everything. And I used a very simple 3D base that the art director at the time just modeled very quickly. There was just like a quick shape of this and like some sort of rock and this rock formation, and then I took it and just made it my own and changed the lighting. I did Chronos in the background, and this one took about probably a day at least, a day or a bit more than a day really, to a day and a half, because there were like changes and revisions and everything. So overall, probably a couple of days between the revisions and the changes and the change of framing. Sometimes you're going to expand the frame a little bit to make it more dramatic. This one is not even like it's not even a 235, or it's a random format which doesn't exist really. I don't know what it is.
Oh, actually, in pixel dimensions, how big is it?
It's not that big, to be honest, because the thing is that all the stuff I do isn't meant to be printed in really big. When you work in an art department, even at the film studio, most of the time when they're going to present stuff to the director, you work directly with a production designer, who's basically the right arm man of the director, who's going to be the guy in charge of everything from the set building to location scouting. He's basically the guy in charge of all the visuals for every set, for all the visuals for the film.
Right.
And this guy, the production designer, he comes to see you. You're sitting at your desk, you're painting stuff, and hopefully you're doing it right, because you don't have much time to rectify the shot if you mess up. And once you got your pictures up, you save all your pictures somewhere. He takes them, print them, and when there's a presentation with the director, and it's never bigger than an A3. Sometimes they're going to print like some of the pictures much bigger, but it doesn't matter really. It's not about. I would say that on average, I would say 3K, 3,000 pixels wide, and sometimes 2K to 2048, and on rare occasions it would be 7K wide, but it was a mistake. Like when And you could feel it because your machine suddenly starts slowing down. It's like, what the hell is going on? You know, you start drawing, and it's like, oh, fuck, stupid machine, stupid Macintosh, blah blah blah, and then you realize that you work on a massive picture, and you think because you know when you start working like in the middle of your picture, and then suddenly like either you get told, yeah, we'd like it to be a bit wider, we want to see more things, or you think that the picture would look better if you had more in frame, so you expand the frame, and again and again and again, and you end up with this massive file, and yeah, but most of the time I would say like 2 or 3K max. Really, I wouldn't go higher than that. I personally don't see the point, and I'm not planning on printing them like really big anyway.
Right.
And it's more than enough really to and it's all and to be honest, when I look at pictures, you'll probably see it on screen. If the picture works, obviously I wouldn't present that to the clients, but if it works like this, at this scale, you know, very small, it's going to work no matter how big it is. You know, it's like, but it has to work like that. So I always tend to work on one side. I don't have 2 screens here at home, but at work I always have like 2 screens. On the left screen, I've got my Photoshop opened, or 3D software when necessary. But when I'm in Photoshop, I have the picture full screen on my left-hand side screen. And on the right-hand side screen, I've got the picture like very small. And you know, when you go to, I usually do it like this. I would go to Window, Arrange, and I would do New Window. And basically, what happens here? I only have one screen, but up, like, so I'm here, and let's say that I want to paint a scary. Oh, yeah, that's it. This is perfect color for it. Scary eyes for these guys. I should have done that at the time. It's like much scarier like that, you know. And you could add a little mustache, you know. He's a scary dude now. And what I love about this is that this picture would be full screen, so I can really focus on details and everything, or like mid screen, probably around this size actually. I hardly work bigger than this, to be honest, unless I really want to get into the details and stuff. And this one is just a JPEG, so it's not full res. And on the screen on the other side, I would have the picture probably this big, or slightly bigger, and it helps me see whether the composition, the composition and the lighting is working. Because it's not, for me, it's not about detail, it's about the general mood and the masses, you know, like how this works in relation to the rocks on the right, where this line is, how everything works in frame. And if it works at this scale, then it's all about adding little details and things. It's going to work out from there. At that point, you can relax. You can think, okay, that's cool. The hardest part of the job is done, and then I can relax. I can just continue. It's going to be a smooth ride from there, because you know exactly where you're going. But until you got the composition right and the light direction and the general mood right, it's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit more intense because you have to deliver quickly and you have to hit the mark. And but when you get there, that's cool. It's that's it. You can relax. You know that you're going to get it at the end.
And actually, there's a question here asking as far as, is that 300 DPI? And I wanted to interject that when you're working in absolute pixel values, the dots per inch is more for printing, not necessarily for your working, you know, document size. So if he says 4K or 2K, is basically 2,048 pixels on a side, basically. So it's regardless of the dots per inch. But
yeah, no, usually it's 72 DPI.
Mm-hmm.
72, which is the screen resolution. But if you convert it, I mean, I'm not exactly great at mathematics, but if you were to have like a 4K picture in 72 DPI, I think that if you turned it to 300 DPI in order to print it, I think it would still be big enough to print like a really nice resolution on an A3 or even A2. You probably could even stretch it to A1 if you were, you know, you just duplicate. There's an old trick actually that I've learned in a. Let me choose a picture actually to. Let's say this one for instance. If I was this one, it's a bit. Yeah, this one is a bit grainy. So what you would do, I'll quickly do that because it's not the most interesting. So you would, filter, reduce noise. Where is it? Noise, reduce noise. Preserve detail. Like, reduce noise a bit. And let's say, I mean, this one is particularly grainy, so it's going to be a bit weird, but you just duplicate your image, you go to Filter, High Pass, and then you adjust this. It's something that I used to use in texturing, actually, because when you work on like 8K, 8,000 pixels like textures, or 16K textures, which is insane, you need sometimes to, you don't necessarily have all the picture references that you need at that size, so you need to make up for it, and to fake, basically, the sharpness. So you take this, and up, you put it in overlay on top, and probably like 50% or so, or 30, depending on the picture. And when you do a back and forth, here it is, you can see, I don't know if you can see, let me zoom in a bit, up. You can see that, you see?
Yeah.
Before, after. And this makes, on this picture, it's not a, let's say I'm applying it a second time, yeah? Up, that's it. It's something that you can do, and so the size really is, unless you want to print print it on the side of a building, or use it as a wallpaper. To be honest, 3K, 72 dpi, more than enough. Above that, personally, I think that it's useless.
And just to confirm, basically, someone's asking, so all of your production work or pieces are done at 72 dpi?
Yeah, all of them, yeah. Or sometimes it's a mistake. So when I start from a sketch, I tend to sketch like a super high res. And maybe I'm obsessional compulsive with this. I've always done it. It's probably useless. But the fact is that it's 300 dpi, and then when I sketch on top, I forget to change the resolution, and I end up like with massive like pictures which are super heavy. But no, I would say 72 dpi. Don't go over that. Really, there's no point. It's not. We don't work for print, or even if it's for the art of, when you get lucky enough to get your work printed in an art book or something for like a 3K or 4K at the very most, so 72 dpi, that's more than enough to print on an art book. They're going to get like yeah. It's the way I've always worked, and it's always been enough. Some other stuff here, like from the Superman, it was like a Man of Steel, back at Double Negative again. So Double Negative got awarded this sequence, with the world engine, the two world engine on both sides of the world, kind of like digging this massive hole. And this was, I was just trying out like some like moody kind of like little sketches with happy Superman flying around and being a bit worried. You don't see it here, but he's a bit worried. Yeah, that sort of things as well, which are like, again, quick sketches. For this one, usually I tend to not use, at the time I wasn't using much 3D, but for this one I had like a very basic like a model, again, from a good friend, an art director, Gurel Mehmet, and I took it like and basically made this painting out of it. And this one was more of a bit more realistic kind of, painting. What's happening? Sorry, my bridge is playing weird. Here.
And while he's basically setting up his Photoshop again, please feel free to enter any questions you have for Philippe into your question module.
So for this one, for example, it was I did a little like kind of like storyboard for the whole sequence, and I came up with this, which was a bit more photoreal, again to give the team as a guideline in terms of what the light would look like, and the whole smoky kind of environment around it, this lightning bolts, and this sort of like a laser beam, like digging into the ocean, and you see the little palm trees here. And Superman flying, trying to save the Earth from a total destruction, and yeah, that sort of thing as well. And
actually, a question just came in regards to we have an instructor who teaches high school students. And wants to know, should he continue to teach them figure and animal drawing, anatomy for artists, and landscapes, etc., or 3D programs, or to do both, basically?
Rather going the traditional approach, or jumping into modeling and 3D?
Yeah, or do both of them, basically.
I think personally I would say both, but actually it's an interesting question because the industry is changing very, very rapidly, very quickly, and in most art departments nowadays people do 3D. They do a little bit of 3D, even like some of the old timers that I've had the chance to work with. Who've been in the industry for like working in art departments for as far as some of them worked on Aliens, like the second James Cameron's Aliens, and all these guys now are using a 3D, and all of them are using it like not all the time, but they always can resort to 3D as a first pass because it gives you so much flexibility that it's a good addition. But I would say that 3D in itself, if the student hasn't experienced firsthand what it's like to build a picture, to understand perspective, because obviously the 3D software does it for you. You don't need to think about your vanishing point or your horizon or anything like that. You don't need to think about lighting because you put a light in and then the light hits the right faces and projects the right shadows if you know how to set up your 3D scene. So it's kind of like, I've seen many times like students like going straight to 3D and failing to make an interesting picture, or a picture which works from a compositional point of view, because they never asked themselves the right questions. They never struggled to put things in frame rather than moving the camera around, which makes their life much easier. And I think that it's interesting. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to spend your entire career drawing digitally, drawing traditionally, because it's impossible. Because when you work on a production, it's way too fast. You don't have time to paint. You cannot come in with your easel, your canvas, and start an like you won't last very long. They're going to tell you, yeah, that's very nice, but thank you, goodbye, and that's it, end of your career. So you can do that. So yeah, I would say that both are important. Even if it's just to come up with little sketches, quick little sketches before tackling the actual picture or design. And a lot of directors are actually very keen on seeing these little sketches, or lots of production designers are really keen on seeing them because they can quickly tell you whether you're going in the right direction or not. It's like, yeah, that's cool. No, not this one. Show me your 5th sketch that you've done like during the day, or 6th sketch or whatever. Yeah, that's it. This is what I want to see. And then, boom, that's it. You can go full steam and in the right direction. So it's very, very, very quick. It's much quicker than coming up with a 3D model. It doesn't matter how quick you are as a modeler. A little sketch will always beat any modeler in the world. And I love modeling and I love 3D, but no, a sketchbook and a little sketch, a quick doodle is always going to be quicker, no matter what.
So do you think it's important for them to focus on that traditional aspect initially and then branch into 3D, or you just say both are equally important and try to balance between the two?
Both are equally important, but because of the way the industry is moving, I would say that first focus on traditional skills, then move on pretty quickly to have the first-hand experience of all the problematic that you'll encounter when you're not like helped by any 3D software or 2D software whatsoever. And then when you've suffered enough, then you move on to 3D. And but at least you'll tackle it from a 2D point of view. You'll think about a picture in the right way. I think that it's important to continue as well, to continue using 2D even when you started 3D. But both are complementary. One for me doesn't go without the other.
Right.
And it's and 3D is great. I've started using Modo lately, actually. Can I say names of like softwares online and stuff?
Oh yes, you can. Actually, that's something that the students, I think, and viewers want to know. So
yeah.
Yes.
So I've used Maya in the past. I've been using Photoshop for like I don't know, 20 years maybe or something or more. And Modo I've started only recently, and I'm planning on using ZBrush soon. I've had like a glimpse of ZBrush a while ago, but I realized that these softwares are becoming, as I said, vital. And I've used a bit of SketchUp as well, actually on a project like such as this one, talking about 3D and the whole kind of approach that you could take. This was for Jupiter Ascending. So on this film, I've worked for 2.5, nearly 3 years, on and off. So from the very, very early stage, where the art department didn't even exist at the time, up to the very final to the final kind of like pre-production and post-production concept. So I'm just looking for the other one.
Do you have the one you showed me with the layers broken out for that?
I'm just opening them now. Here
Oh,
we
okay.
are.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've opened the wrong one.
And the question came in as far as how long would these take to do, basically?
One of those, for example, this one?
Yes.
This one, okay, let me try and remember. This one would take, but let me show you the process, and I'll take you how long it took.
Okay, perfect.
To come up with this first, it was probably, because I did a few sketches for this one. Actually, I'll show you the sketches quickly, and then the 3D model. So for this, I would do, where is it? I would do like a little sketches, such as this one. Where are they? Here they are. Like stuff like that, for example, which was like the bridge. So it's like again like a pencil sketch, quickly colored in Photoshop, which was for the design of the bridge. You can see here the sort of pillars and stuff. This, which looks like a halfway between Notre Dame de Paris and God knows what, with some little statues at the top, and hop. And then from there, I got this stuff. I designed this really quick and really crude SketchUp model. The spaceship in the background is actually what was given to me by George Hull, that you probably know by name. He worked like on the original Matrix, and he's a great and amazing designer. And he tends to use, and he's got a traditional background as well, an industrial designer, but he tends to use SketchUp a lot. But anyway, I'm not gonna speak in his name. But he gave me this model that he did. It was for one of the spaceships, because this was a model in terms of scale and proportion which had been approved at the time. I put it in the background, and then I put my environment in front of it. So very simple little characters for scale. I just put a light in SketchUp, and for those who used SketchUp before, I think this one was rendered with a little app actually, which allowed you to have like a slightly nicer render than in SketchUp, but it's still not great. So at least I had like a light direction, I had shadows, I had my shapes and proportions and my perspective, so I could start my picture much quicker, because what I got asked by the production designer on this particular design was to come up with different angles. So first we're gonna see them. We're gonna be like far away. We're gonna be in approach of this landing pad. Then I'll show them bigger after that. It's just to show you the journey, but I'll put them full screen in a minute. This one when you get a bit closer, and then you would have this one. So the camera is again at a different angle, and this one as well. You see all these guys coming out of the spaceship and everything, and to come up with all that within the time frame that I had, which was literally probably a week or so, or a bit more, like to come up with all those ones, probably a couple of weeks. I really needed to resort to 3D, so SketchUp. Then on top of it, I would throw, I kind of like a vague idea of the sort of thing I wanted to illustrate in terms of like lighting and mood. This planet was supposed to be lit by a couple of suns or red suns or something, so it was heavily reddish, or orangey. So I thought, okay, orangey. So I took a picture, blurred the hell out of it, put it on top, and then I thought, okay, this is my palette. This is what I'm going to use as a palette. Very crude. Then, boom, I brought back the model on top of it, using like either like an overlay or multiply or lighten or whatever works, or just selecting the shadowy part and enhancing them with a level adjustment layer or that sort of things. And then I would refine it, so I would bring a bit of texture here. I would refine, okay, so where's my light? The light is going to hit here. It's still very crude, but I know when I'm at this stage that I know exactly where I'm going. It's because the composition has been locked up. The production designer is happy. He said, yeah, that's cool, go for it. So you can breathe, and then you put your music on, and then you go for it, and it's a fun ride. So you just improve it step by step, like refining the shadows, refining the shapes a little bit, adding like some little patterns and design, putting a bit of bounce light right here, starting to highlight things, like a bit of texture on the floor, then the spaceship, and then when the picture is fully finished, it looks like something like that. So you have like you have the army, like you got these guards on the side, you got these statues here, you have the spaceship in the background, and it's quite a painless process. As soon as you got it's a bit painful too, because you gotta you gotta and same thing goes with this one, same sort of approach as well. You see like a very simple, like a 3D model, again a SketchUp, because I was much faster in SketchUp, but it's a very easy software to use. A little grade on top, like a level or curves according to the way it works. It's up to you. Then again, I put my mix of pictures like on top of it to get like a palette, a general like a kind of palette. I bring back the model to get like a more of a foreground, midground kind of elements. And then I refine it a bit and a bit more, shadows and all that. A bit of rim light or the light hitting here, a bit of bounce, and then the background a little bit, and the final one, which is a bit more refined, a bit more textured, with a few like patterns and things and silhouettes to give it a scale. But it's this process for me works pretty well, because it allows me to quickly come up with something, and then to just add up to it, like and it comes naturally after that, really. Same with this one as well, which is for the same sequence. So it started with an even simpler, because I didn't have the little software to do the renders at the time. So it was like a straight out of SketchUp. So you can see that it's extremely crude, lots of jiggly kind of faces. Like the shadows couldn't be simpler than that. It's just like a harsh shadows. But at least I knew that my light was going to come from there. I knew where my vanishing point was. On top of that, usually I put like a perspective grid. This way I know that my perspective is going to be perfect. And then I start adding up to it. So here it's like this one was a mix of photos and from an old concept that I did. So recycling up. Then I bring this. This is like this little bit at the back. It's from an artist who was working remotely from I think from China, I believe. We did loads and loads of like very complex and intricate. I can't remember his name, so I apologize if he ever listens to this interview, because we never worked like together. But some of his concepts like got approved, and so I took a little bit of this for the far background because they wanted to see some of that, and then I kept adding to my picture, like some shadows and details and then more, like the spaceship on the side here, like to make it a bit more complex, and then that. So I wanted this to be a bit more overpowering, like to give it a massive scale. Here are the little characters coming out of it's Balem who comes out with his entourage from his spaceship. Then again a bit refined, like, and a bit more, and then it's a big jump because I couldn't find the other PSDs, the latest PSDs. So from there to there, and again here adding scale, adding like lighting, give it some depth as well. The black levels are very important, obviously, and I've done a bit of matte painting as well, so I'm careful about that. The usual thing. The density of your blacks on the foreground wouldn't be as high as the ones over there, obviously. Like it's the simple rules of I mean it's physics. It's just physics when you and yeah, the light. So adding a few details in the light, a few patterns around there, lens flare. I tend to avoid the lens flares because it's the easy trick. So I put them like very scarcely, like once in a while. I allow myself to put one, but it's a bit of a trick, I think.
So you ration them out. It
looks sci-fi. Sorry?
So you ration them out?
Sorry? Yeah. So
yeah, you ration the lens flares out.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and this one, and you got like this. Where is it? Yeah, this one. This one, it's the same sort of idea as well. So very simple as well. There was hardly any light direction in this one, and then I've added to it like a little grade. Added a shadow, a bit more simple. Like here, there was supposed to be spaceships and stuff, so I'm adding a bit of scale to it. Then this one, and then later on, because I didn't like the overall grade of this one, it was a bit too colorful, too sharp as well, and too dense, and so I kind of like simplified it. And sometimes it's about sacrificing things as well, you know, by because when you do a picture with lots of details, and here they wanted something particularly intricate and detailed, so I didn't have much of a choice because this is what they liked, and it's quite fun to do, to be fair. But sometimes it's good to sacrifice. So for example, everything which was here on the right hand side or there, I kind of lost it. You know, it's like it's on here, like it's really visible. You know, you can see all the little intricate little like patterns and everything, and then say, no, I don't need this. The focus should be there, not there. So let's put everything in the shadows right here for the sake of this picture. And again, I took some liberties with the light direction because you could assume that with such a strong light, there would be probably a little bit of dancing light around there, you know, because the whole planet is like heavily lit. But I took some artistic liberties, I would say, and decided to play this one's backlit, almost backlit. And I think that it serves the composition in this particular case. So yeah, this one was another example as well. This was the very last one. At this point, the Wachowskis, Lana and Andy Wachowski, wanted to open this, you know, because on the one before you had like two arches like this on one side, and they said, yeah, open it, just cut it, and keep it only on one side, and show a massive like industrial city instead. I said, okay, that's cool. It's good. And so you just go left and you just do it. And again, I took like a few elements from this artist I was telling you about earlier, this Chinese artist, and there were elements that they wanted to see, like this tower, that I redesigned a bit as well, and everything else is completely like made up, and little piece of architectures and everything. And there you see the big like kind of like castle or cathedral, which is part of this massive complex. So this was like some work on I've done like quite a lot of work on this project on Jupiter ascending, and I'll show you some more stuff if you like. Yeah, maybe this one here. What else? Yeah.
I have a question from the instructor again, who wants to know, should he bother teaching students Mudbox since ZBrush appears to be the default program used in the industry?
If these ones are the default ones, when it comes to concept art, you mean? Or
well, I guess he's asking in general terms, like, should he teach his students both Mudbox and ZBrush, or just only ZBrush, since people tend to use that the most?
If people are planning on working in post-production, a lot of people are using Maya in post-production. At least it's the case in London, and I think probably in other facilities around the world, in films like post-production companies. But when it comes to concept, and they use ZBrush as well, heavily, everyone is using ZBrush nowadays. But to be honest, when it comes to concept art, it doesn't matter. It's I think Mudbox and ZBrush are a really good combination. I've never used Mudbox, but I've heard of it, and I know what it's about, and it's really good. ZBrush, for me, would be more for the organic modeling and everything, but a lot of people nowadays are using it to do vehicles, environments, and everything as well. So it seems to be good as well for other things. Personally, I would rather use something else and keep ZBrush for the organic modeling, everything related to creatures or more like organic, kind of like I don't know, armors or robots and things like this, which are more like characters and like props and things like this. But it's only my personal preference. And But as long as you got like a software which that you're going to use heavily to do environments, and another one which is more focused on like character and like organic modeling, I would say that Mudbox and ZBrush is a very good combination. You could use also Modo and ZBrush. You could use Maya and ZBrush, or anything goes really. But ZBrush seems to be like nowadays like it is a standard. A lot of people are using ZBrush in the industry, especially for creatures. And it's, I would say that it's definitely something that people have to have, a skill that students need to have. And after that, it's a matter of personal preferences, really. Whatever suits your boat, whatever you feel most comfortable with. The idea is basically to be able to build for yourself some sort of process. This is why I'm changing to Modo, because I'm going to work much faster with Modo. It's a bit painful, like learning any software. It's a bit painful at first, but it's worth it, because once you've established your own, it's about making your own quizzing, your own little like a mix. So you're going to start by Sketch, then I model in Modo, then I take this, I do a rough render, then I paint on top. So everyone works differently, but for me it works really well. So yeah, ZBrush, Mudbox, that's good. I think that's pretty good, yeah.
Perfect.
These pictures were done like this was for Jupiter ascending as well. And this one is an example of a picture which was done like entirely in 2D actually. So this one is a mix of paint, of textures, of like photos, regraded and everything, like a big mix of things. And I didn't have a lot of time for this one, for this particular piece, so I started out like something really rough. I don't have the PSD for this one, unfortunately. I couldn't put my hands on it, because I got like loads and loads of those. But yeah, the idea was to come up with a design for this building, which was a Commonwealth Tower on this massive planet that they're going to, called Horus, which is basically where humanity started. It's the cradle of life, as we called it. And yeah, so this big tower had to be like a complex, massive in scale, and the scale is something that the Wachowskis were talking about like on a regular basis. So they really wanted to have this feeling of a massive scale. So this spaceship, for example, is like I think like 200 meters long or something, or 100 meters long, or 150 meters long or something. So it's I don't know in feet or in miles. I don't know if you guys count in feet.
Yes, we count in feet. So
sorry about that. So I won't be able to, but yeah, it's a few 100 meters high. It's like probably like a 700, 800 or something. So it's quite big. And this was done completely in 2D, for example. So I put my perspective grid. It's quite a simple perspective, this one. Like it's almost like a central kind of vanishing point, really. I wanted to keep it simple because the design was like complex enough. And I wanted it to be like in your face, like an establisher, and you just arrive in front of it, and boom, here it appears. So like a central vanishing point. The vanishing point is probably around here. And yeah, and just I did like a quick silhouette at first. I did a bit of light by hand. Decided where I wanted my light to come from, and then I did like a bit of pictures, a bit of like photographs when necessary. Even took some old concept that I did, threw them in there, regraded them, distorted them, and just anything goes, basically, to get your final results. Same with this one, actually. It was the same sort of like same sort of idea. This one was in approach of Horus as well, so you get closer and closer. The building that you just saw is somewhere on this planet. So it's like tiny somewhere around there or there. And this is like you got this massive kind of belt around the planet, which is filled up with loads of like structures and almost like little worlds, like in themselves, like bays and all these things, with lots of spaceships flying around everywhere. It's like extremely busy with life. And here you have this sort of like a floating algae. You got this spaceship, this massive like machineries and stuff, little spaceships getting in and out there as well, and there you got the planet over there, and there's another layer of like structures above just outside of the atmosphere of the planet, We got a few moons. This one is a real moon. This one is a man-made moon. Sorry. You got like this sort of like almost like a field with protected by an energy field or something. You could come up with like crazy stories. This is a cool thing when you work when you do sci-fi movies, and when the brief is quite open, as it was the case for this one, you can really go crazy. And as long as you follow the brief, after that, what you put in frame at this stage, they give us quite a lot of flexibility. And then they kind of like restrained and they kind of like focused on what they wanted to see after a while. But at first we had like quite a lot of freedom to come up with like these pictures and all the visuals. This one was another example as well for the same environment. It was one of the first, one of the last actually, for this same tower. So the other one was done in pre-production at the studio. This one was done during the phase of post-production. So this part here was a 3D render that my old friend Olivier Pron, who's a very talented concept artist, gave me. He rendered it in Vue 3D, and I took this, boom, added everything else, changed like the lighting, everything here, added all that, added the planet behind it, and make it look like bigger, and try and find a way to make the scale work. And again, you got the little moons here, and here they wanted like a homage to 2001. This was a request from Lana Wachowski. So we put was it Lana or was it? I don't want to say anything which isn't true. Was it him or was it Dan Glass, maybe the VFX supervisor? I think it was Lana. Anyway, here is a little homage to 2001, and this one was when you're on approach to the planet. So you see the massive ring that we went through in one of the previous pictures I was showing you. So we were about here probably, or there, or whatever, and then you could see the planet in the far background. So it's a massive ring.
That's amazing.
Do we still have a bit of time? Or should I stop? I talked a lot.
Well, actually, I mean, I like the audience have been captivated by just your work. I mean, if you want to show something else, I don't think anyone else here would be upset with that. I mean, again, do you want to continue? Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So stop me. Well, when you want to go.
Okay.
What else could I? Yeah, maybe some more like for again like Jupiter ascending. This one was like again the approach of the planet. These were some massive structures sticking out of the planet. So starting from the surface of the planet itself, going through the atmosphere, reaching this massive structure, which is pretty much covering the entire planet, like some sort of a web-like structure all around the planet, and it will be connected to this immense structures. And from these structures, you would have lots of like roads and connections to the entire planet itself, like an intricate kind of like a web of structures all over. And yeah, some similar work, but similar and different stuff that I've done for like it was for Cloud Atlas. Where's the other one? Oh. So this was actually for this one. I'll show you before, after. It's another. Yeah. So for this one, it was. In Cloud Atlas, in one of the sequences, there's some sort of chase in a Neo Seoul, which is like a very futuristic version of Seoul in South Korea, and there's this sort of like transways, this sort of like roads, or and they're like semi-transparent, they're semi-tangible as well. You can go through them, and they're everywhere, so they're covering the entire city. And there was like this massive chase, and at the time when I worked on this film. I think it's ILM who worked on the actual sequence, and they gave me this, which was from
wow,
from the animatic that they did for the film. So which is so at least it gave me, actually it made my life so much easier, because you can go in so many directions when you start, which is fun as well. But in this case, it was much quicker, because it was in post production. We needed to see pictures pretty quickly. to give to the rest of the team in order to make the shots. So here I had like an idea that they wanted to see vehicles. They wanted them to be modern, but not too modern. Like to have this sort of like made up kind of like vehicles which were originally like a normal motorbike or a normal car, which had been like improved and in order to be able to use it on these transways, on this particular like roads. So I had my vanishing point, I had my perspective, pretty simple again, like vanishing point in the middle, and then I did this, which is essentially the same, only more detailed, more like more relevant in terms of lighting, obviously, and mood. But this is actually extremely helpful when you get something like whether you get given a picture like this or you come up with it, like I showed you before, like in SketchUp. This we will speed up your work like 100 times. So it doesn't need, for me, it doesn't need to be more detailed than this. Even if I'm getting more into like a proper modeling at the moment, because I want to learn a bit more about it, like, because I've been doing modeling and a bit of rendering, but I've never been like a hardcore, super good modeler. So I'm learning more about it now because it is very useful. But as far as the concept is concerned, most of the time it's if you can do better than this, or if you don't have time, this is more than enough, because you got all the information you need. You got your perspective, you got your composition, and after that, you just need to, it's all about adding details and everything. And if you understand lighting, if you understand perspective, if you know how to compose a frame, it's all going to be about, it's all going to be fun. It's all going to be like a smooth ride, a fun ride, because you're going to start thinking of all the little things you could hide, like, these things here on the side of this, to make it look like a little Chinese takeaway, kind of like a moving trolley kind of thing, like in a futuristic kind of way, like and you got like the motorbike over there. You try and find a sense of this spaceship just above us is going the other way, but it's semi-transparent, but you can still see it. So it's all about textures, details, and it's pretty fun actually when it gets to this stage. Some other stuff I did for Cloud at Last include also that sort of thing.
How did you do these neon lights, basically, that we keep seeing?
This one here?
Yeah, for example.
Some of them are painted, like just some like little dots and stuff with brushes and things that I'm using. And others, are you talking about this one, for example?
Yes.
Or these ones in particular. So sometimes I'm gonna design them myself. I've got other concepts that I don't have here. Like I did one like in another concept for Jupiter, actually, for Jupiter assembling. It was like a resort island kind of thing, with a little palm tree and stuff. So I designed it myself. But in this case, I just took some. I went on Google, magical Google. I typed like Chinatown and neon lights, and then I typed Tokyo neon lights, and then I came up with a few like really nice neon lights. I changed them a little bit, and I threw them in there, and because it gives you like sometimes there's no point replicating something which is going to be like a spot on, which is going to work much better than any time you could spend doing it. And in this case, the neon lights, I took them as a base. I modified them a little bit for them to really work in my picture, but it was much quicker to work this way. And so it can be too precious sometimes. You just go on Google, you take like a little piece of a picture, you throw it in there, and then and then you put it in screen mode or in lighten mode. You grade it, you change it a bit, you change the colors and everything. Sometimes you use just a small piece of it, and you make up the rest. And when it comes to all these little lights that you see in the background here, the fast way of doing something like this, you type on Google nighttime cityscape, nighttime cityscape, any city, like for instance maybe New York, or probably more like a city like New York, or like with lots of buildings, or Tokyo maybe at night, or Hong Kong, from afar, like an aerial kind of shot where you see the whole city. You bring the picture in, and then you put it in screen mode, and you're going to keep all the little lights. Then you can delete in a mask the lights that you don't want to keep, and you keep the rest, and it gives you a nice, intricate kind of little like layout of lights that you can move around any way you want, and you can keep the ones you want. You can paint some more if you need some more, some specific lights, and it's extremely quick. It's a well-known trick. I mean, to use like a cityscape, but it really works. It really works when you want to quickly have a sense of density in the background and detail and life. This was also for Cloud Atlas. I've done quite a lot of sketches for this one. It was this hoverboat kind of thing, but that you see in a sequence. It's really quick, actually. You probably, if you've seen the film, you probably don't remember it, but it was like this sort of like floating kind of like hoverboat, I think it's called. And I've done quite a few sketches for it, and this one is completely painted. There's no 3D, no photo or anything, and so it was just one of the versions that I did. And there's some stuff from Thor, the Dark World. I was working at Method Studios, where I'm still working today, and the production designer on the film, Thor: The Dark World, came to see us, and at that point there was like a change of director, if I'm not mistaken, and he needed really quickly to get lots of visuals for this sequence, where the world of the Dark Elves, this really I can't remember. It's got like the most difficult name to pronounce. I think it's an impossible name, but it's a Dark Elves world. Let's call it like that, because it's a. So you see them here, like wandering, like lost souls in their destroyed world. So you can see that it used to be an amazing place with these massive like structures, heavily ornamented and massive and sumptuous. And it came down to that, this desperate kind of world. The same with this one here. You see this these poor little guys right here. Like this one has got.
It almost like Gandalf there.
Yeah. There's the one with like Sauron. He's got two little horns. I don't know them by name, but I can tell you that they're not happy. They're pretty depressed, actually. I mean, and so this one was like completely painted. It was like there's probably a bit of photograph maybe in places in the sky, but it's completely painted. So sometimes I'm not using photographs at all, because I've used like I've got one brush that I use for these sort of things. I've got probably 2 or 3 brushes. That's it, and maybe another one with trees, like a tree brush that I use like very rarely, but I tend to paint stuff like with only with like simple shapes and stuff, and I don't use many method brushes. Maybe I should. Maybe it would make my work even faster. But right now I'm comfortable with this sort of setup that I have, and this sort of thing as well. We had to convey a sense of desperation and hopelessness. So, this intense, like burning light, this floating debris and rocks, as if the gravity was completely upside down. You got this. I don't know. It looks like almost like a skeleton of an ancient creature or something. I don't know. All these architectures destroyed and floating, and you see all these little guys again, as sad as ever. Like still very depressed, walking around. And you got these floating rocks, and they walk on this massive piece of land, which itself is probably floating into space, and this very threatening sky above them. So this was the idea. So dramatic lighting, and it's funny because I mean, when you do this a lot, and sometimes you get asked to do something. There's some project I worked on recently that I cannot unfortunately show you because I would get killed. Where they ask like there's something, it's much more difficult actually to come up with a low contrast kind of environment. When you don't have like defined, and it's more challenging and more exciting in some ways to come up with like an environment which are more like a bit more subtle in the lighting. You don't have like a strong like a directional light. You don't have strong shadows. You don't have any elements which are backlit or like a foreground, midground, and background. What I would call like low contrast, like on a winter day when it's hard to tell, like the light is going through the clouds and it doesn't. It's hard to tell when you look around you where the light is coming from. Everything is kind of lit the same, and it's. I love doing that sort of pictures as well. I've done quite a few lately. I cannot show them here, unfortunately, but it's very important also to challenge yourself in that way, because
Right.
it's a lot of like it's. I wouldn't say that it's easier, but it comes more naturally to do that sort of things. You know, you got this foreground, boom, midground, background, boom, 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 like three, like, you know, the set of like it's like you do it by the book almost, if you see what I mean.
Right.
And it's cool, but there's so many other ways, obviously, to light a scene, and it's really good to experiment with more challenging kind of lighting, more challenging atmospheres, and to really define for yourself a few to come up with briefs for yourself, like okay, now I'd like to do like an early countryside, like kind of early winter morning, you know, I'd like to have a lot of bounce light everywhere. I would like to have you know, like sometimes in winter as well, when you got this really harsh white light hitting the ground, or it's almost blinding. And there's so many things to experiment with, really, you know. It's really good to try lots of different things.
We have a question they're asking, are you talking about low-key and high-key pictures, basically?
What do you mean by low-key and high-key in terms of...
I'm assuming it's a technical description. Actually, give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
Matthew, if you're there, could you specify in more detail your question? I'm familiar with the term, but not the actual details of it. But I think it describes a particular process of, you know, contrast levels and relative to colors and a composition.
Yeah, because I see what it means, but in this particular case, when I mean low contrast, what I mean is basically a less obvious and defined lighting, in the sense that it's not going to be like a very strong light coming from the side. Like, for instance, let me show you an example which is the exact opposite of what I'm talking about. Okay, for example, this one. This one is for me the exact opposite of a low contrast picture.
Okay, so I
This
think
one
you guys might be talking about the same thing. So
yeah.
Matthew wrote in that high-key pictures are when most of the values are dark, basically. Where
Okay.
I guess the low-key is the opposite.
All right. So yeah. So we're talking about the same thing. Yeah. So it's contrasted. Or for me, like this, it's nice, and but it comes more naturally because it's easier to set up. It's challenging in lots of different ways, but it's good to really get out of that, because it's a first reflex of many artists, actually, because it's quicker as well. It's quicker to come up with pictures which are very visually striking, with this sort of like I wouldn't say visual trick, because it's not a visual trick, but it's a nice way of tackling a picture, and it's efficient, and it's in your face. But it's really nice to come up with like low contrast, where it's essentially bounce light everywhere, rather than directly like a hit objects and heavy shadows. And if we do another interview, maybe in a little while, if you want to have me another time, I could show some more pictures that I don't have with me here, but I could illustrate what I'm talking about with examples.
And actually, I think we might want to wrap it up in probably a few minutes anyway, because I think we are at the hour-and-a-half mark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So if you have any last picture you would like to share as a parting image for the audience, I would say, actually, I keep looking at the one you have with the character with the arm disintegrating. He keeps staring at me.
This one here?
Yeah, from Iron Man. Would you mind closing out with that sequence?
Yeah, okay. So I could show you. So basically, this was for Iron Man 3, and at the time I worked at I'm still at Method Studios, and we did this for our facility back in LA, because we got lots of different facilities in LA, Detroit, Vancouver, Sydney, and everything. And they were bidding for the film. So I don't know if it ever made it into the film. I have no idea. The only thing I know that I spent a day designing this, which is a very quick one. This one, the idea was to have these guys, if you've seen the film, who can regrow their own limbs using this sort of like special power that they have. This sort of magma, it looks almost like a magma regrowing their limbs. So the idea was they gave us this picture to work from. So there was this guy, obviously, with both his arms, like a picture of this guy, very lit, like a backlit like this. And the idea was to come up with this. So I came up with like 10 steps, and I can show you actually. I got this, so it could be fun to watch. I'm just gonna need like a minute to open. That's it. I think the ratio is bad, but it's gonna do the trick. Up. And so this is, I don't know if you can see it, if it doesn't lag or if it's does it show on your screen?
It's playing in real time actually, so that's good.
Yeah, okay. Because basically this is a 2D concept done in a day. So I've done 10 steps in Photoshop.
Right.
And then I've animated them in Photoshop to come up with an animation. Because I've always loved animation, so sometimes I mix them. I mean, simple animation. We're not talking about challenging animation here, but it's what we call a look development concept. So basically, you do like lots of concepts. You put them together to show the before after. And in this case, it was the growing of the arm. So
that's very cool. And basically, you did each frame of that particular disintegration in just a day it took you to do this?
A day to do the whole thing.
The whole
to
thing.
do the entire animation, the 10 frames. Because we didn't have much time. But to do this, to be honest, it sounds like it's, I don't know if it sounds quick or not, but it's
that sounds very quick. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, this is less challenging than other pictures, because this is it's heavily because it's photoreal and everything. And I've got like a huge library of textures and references and everything, and I knew exactly where I was going with that. The brief was quite specific, so it cuts down to a lot of like brainstorming and thinking. So what I did very quickly, because I know that we're running out of time, I have basically a frame with the full arm, like covered in this sort of like fleshy kind of like texture. As if the skin had been ripped off of the full arm. So I had like a frame with everything like with this fleshy texture. Another frame with this sort of like burnt, like a burnt kind of like ashes kind of texture.
Right.
And another frame with this sort of in between, a bit more specular like details appearing and everything. And then what I did is like I put these 10 frames on 10 different layers, 10 different groups, and using masks and adding details in each of them and playing them out in order for them to work as an animation, and adding the magma details when necessary. I quickly came up with an animation because I had my, it was just about masking one and revealing the other, step after step, if you see what I mean.
Right, and these are all done in Photoshop.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's completely in Photoshop. It's completely 2D, completely in Photoshop, animated in Photoshop. And I just generated a QuickTime from Photoshop, and that's it. It's all
I didn't know Photoshop could render QuickTimes. That's cool.
Yeah, you can export QuickTime. You can animate. It's a very crude way of animating. Obviously, if you want to animate, don't use Photoshop. But for that purpose, I find it very, very handy.
Right.
So,
I know. Very cool.
And that's it. I guess we're running out of time.
No, I mean, I would love to be here all day to see more of this, but the work is absolutely amazing. You're already getting thank yous from the audience. So, Philippe, again, thank you so much for giving us a part of your Saturday again, and in making up for the technical issues from last time. I think everyone here is amazed at all the work you've shown, and I think we should have a second interview to cover the stuff you didn't even touch on that you had prepared, because you showed me quite a bit as well that they haven't seen yet. But that all being said, everyone, thank you for attending today's live interview with the Masters. Remember, registration is open for both our 2D and 3D classes, so please check out our website to look at the lineup of classes, and if you haven't registered yet, please do so. You have until May 1st to do it. Beyond that, again, thank you all for participating and showing up for today's interview, and to you, Philippe, thank you so much. You are absolutely amazing.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for everyone who was listening. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and that you got like a few insights or discovered a few things that you didn't know, and yeah, and hopefully it was enjoyable, and hopefully I'll see you another time as well.
Awesome.
Uh, uh,
Take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you all for coming.
Thanks a lot, and speak to you soon.
Yes.
Bye,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.